Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuru Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Nama Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasyatya Desatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratishe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Taruvesya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Guru Dinatarinam Shri Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hare Krishna. So I am feeling extremely grateful to be amongst all of you. And there are some new faces. So we welcome all the new devotees for our Srimad Bhagavatam class. There is, I think, Mona Lisa Mataji, and then there is Ajay Jena, Dev Malya, and who else? Sunita Bali, Nidhi Mataji, Hare Krishna, Sikha Sarkar. So I am feeling extremely grateful that all of you have completed Bhagavad-Gita and you are all coming to attend Srimad Bhagavatam classes. Bhagavad-Gita is about Krishna, spoken by Krishna. And Srimad Bhagavatam is about Krishna, spoken by devotees of Krishna. And that's how the difference is. Because if I ask Parul Mataji to speak about herself, what are her glories, then she would speak that, oh, I'm just, I don't know anything, I'm simply an insignificant fool, and like that, out of her humility. But imagine I ask Sumit Prabhu that speak some good qualities of Parul Mataji, and it's like one book would be written. Yes. So it's a natural, for anyone who is spiritual, the natural outcome of becoming spiritual, becoming godly, is to develop humility. And the Lord, who is the supreme source of all good qualities, and as humility is actually the crest jewel of all good qualities, so the Lord exhibits it to the fullest extent. And Bhagavad-Gita, it's the glories of the Lord is quite restricted. And Srimad Bhagavatam actually, because it's spoken by devotees, is spoken by Shukdev Goswami, who is the personal assistant of Srimati Radharani, rather the personal parrot of Srimati Radharani. So Srimad Bhagavatam goes beyond in the boundaries of speaking about Krishna. And that's why Srimad Bhagavatam, anyone who reads this will develop intense separation and love for Krishna. It's a book that infuses, fills our heart with devotion for Krishna. Anyone who has sincerely considered Srimad Bhagavatam as his or her life and soul would feel great separation from the Supreme Lord. Anyone who wants to develop love for Krishna would make Srimad Bhagavatam as his or her life and soul. Srimad Bhagavatam Puranam Amalam Yad Vaishnavananam Priyam. Suta Goswami, after discussing Srimad Bhagavatam with the sages of Naimisharanya, in the end glorifies Srimad Bhagavatam by saying that Srimad Bhagavatam Puranam Amalam. There are so many scriptures, but this scripture is Amala Puran. It has no tinge of any other thing other than developing love for Krishna. Like sometimes we go for giving some seminars to new people on Bhagavad-Gita, and we tell that you read Bhagavad-Gita, you read the scriptures, you will develop mind control. You read Bhagavad-Gita, you read scriptures, you will have better relationship in your family with your husband and wife. You read Bhagavad-Gita, you will develop concentration so that you can excel in and get productivity. These may be the byproducts and the side benefits of reading the scriptures and reading Bhagavad-Gita, but the primary benefit of reading scriptures is to develop love for Krishna. And Srimad Bhagavatam amplifies it and ensures that there is no other benefit other than developing love for Krishna. And that's why Srimad Bhagavatam is Amalam Puran. And because it focuses as its prime subject matter to develop love for the Supreme Lord, that's why Yad Vaishnavananam Priyam. That literature which is very dear to all the Vaishnavas, very, very dear. So we can take it otherwise, other side, that if we are a Vaishnava, then Srimad Bhagavatam will be the most dear, priceless thing that we have possessed in our life. Or taking it in a different way, we can see that if we want to become a Vaishnava, we would make Srimad Bhagavatam as life and soul of our life. Srimad Bhagavatam, Suta Goswami says that for all the Vaishnavas, Srimad Bhagavatam is the most priceless possession. And to take it in the other way, if we want to become genuine Vaishnavas in our life, we should try to see to make Srimad Bhagavatam as the most priceless possession in our life. Many years before, when I was working in an institute where I was asked to do some service there by my superiors, it was such a hectic service, practically morning till night. I was like, I had practically no time to breathe. Sometimes even I didn't have time to go to washroom. Maybe Krishna is ensuring me to go to washroom too much now, so that those things which I missed, everything has to come back. So I remember some days it was so hectic, and at the end I realized I forgot to eat, or I forgot to go for washroom, and then I realized, oh, I just didn't do that, which is so obvious for anyone in life. And it was that hectic. It's like in my next book on Bhakti Yoga, the name will be Engage in Infinity. So I'm going to explain very, very elaborately about many of the experiences in those days. How devotion is about an engagement. So, and it was such a hectic time that forget about reading Srimad Bhagavatam, there was somehow I used to complete my 16 rounds. And in the night, while getting into the mosquito net, I will take the Srimad Bhagavatam and hold it very, very tightly to my chest and cry so much that my entire bedding will get wet, praying to Srimad Bhagavatam that one day will come that I will read you very sincerely and make others read you sincerely and make others attached at your lotus feet. Because Srimad Bhagavatam is not different than Krishna. And I see that so many devotees, all of you are so attentive, and you have been sent by Krishna to help me read Srimad Bhagavatam more intensely. But actually we should understand that Srimad Bhagavatam is not a book. It is Krishna himself. There is no difference between Srimad Bhagavatam and Krishna. There is, and if just like we can develop a relationship with Krishna, we can develop a relationship with Srimad Bhagavatam by reading, and Srimad Bhagavatam will interact and reciprocate with us to the extent we feel the need of it in our life. So this is just an introduction to our Srimad Bhagavatam class today, because some new people, new devotees have joined. Please try to take this class as the most serious thing in your life, exactly same as you take your breathing. If you want to develop love for Krishna, please take Srimad Bhagavatam as important in your life as you take the process of breathing. Right? All of you are breathing. How many of you are breathing? Please raise your hands. Very good. Good. So if you really want to develop love for Krishna, please take the Srimad Bhagavatam as the most important subject matter in your life, just like you take breathing process. Hare Krishna. So now we are going to start this new section. We are going to cover in this section the entire remaining portions of the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we have covered these two sections of the Vritrasur and Chitraketu. And it's available, recorded in the YouTube. Those who have missed, they can attend those. Then the other sections of Srimad Bhagavatam, I would give a brief overview of the other sections. Understanding, because all other sections can be clubbed into one principle which we will be discussing today. And that's why I have clubbed these three sections. There are primarily three sections in the sixth canto remaining. The first section is the section of Ajamil, the story of Ajamila. The second section is the story of how Daksha is getting cursed from Narad Muni. And the third section is the section of Diti trying to become more intelligent than her husband and trying to get her things done and trying to take a vow to kill Indra. So these are three sections which I have clubbed them with one principle that will discuss all these three sections. It may take almost like 5-6 months from now to complete these three sections. These are elaborate sections and need elaborate discussions and has very deep lessons in our life. But since these three sections combined speak on a singular principle, we will discuss it together. So now, before I begin, what is that principle? We need to understand the principle of spiritual world. You see, spiritual world is a world where the soul experiences the dependence on the Supreme Lord, which is its natural position. The natural position of the spirit soul is to experience the dependence with Krishna. That's the natural position. And why it is natural? Because it is coming from Krishna. And the soul is a part of Krishna. We find in Caitanya Charitamrita, let's talk about Krishna. We find Krishna, though he is Jagat Guru, he takes shelter of Uddhava, takes guidance from Uddhava. He feels dependence on Uddhava. Similarly, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and there is no ambiguity among his followers, his associates, that he is Supreme Lord. But Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would not do anything without taking permission. He wanted to go to Vrindavan and he took permission of the devotees. And devotees said, don't go to Vrindavan, oh my Lord, we want that you stay here in Jagannath Puri. And it was so painful for the Supreme Lord, but he didn't go to Vrindavan because devotees didn't give him permission. 4 years, devotees didn't give him permission, and in every year, minimum 10 to 15 times the Lord will approach devotees, please give me permission to go to Vrindavan. And Lord will be rejected. So sometimes when our things don't go our way, we should understand that even Lord Chaitanya had to face that even his things didn't go in his way. That's the nature of the world and how it is. So, but the Lord Chaitanya felt so much dependent on devotees. Krishna felt so much dependent on devotees. And since this is the constitutional nature of the Lord, this is also the constitutional natural position of the soul. The Lord feels dependent on his devotees, and soul on a natural position feels dependent on the Lord. And that's the mood of spiritual world. It's a place where the soul and the super soul, the Lord and devotees, they experience mutual dependence. They experience love through mutual dependence. Now the soul, because he has this freedom to desire, the soul expresses a desire to experience independence from the Lord. which is not his natural position. And since it is not his natural position, the soul is put in the material world to experience an illusion of independence. If anyone asks you the definition of material world, the definition of material world is very simple. It's a design to help the soul experience the illusion of independence to God. That's how the material world is. The soul, even in material world, is extremely dependent on Krishna. Rather, in spiritual world, the soul has some freedom. In material world, he has no freedom. It's like no freedom. Narad Muni is a spiritual personality. And how much freedom he has? Yes. And what freedom do we have? So it's natural that the soul has more freedom in spiritual world than in material world. But in material world, the soul thinks out of illusion that is more free. And that's how material energy has designed the material world, to make the soul completely get convinced that I am free. I can do anything I want in my own way. So that's the illusion. And Durga Devi and Lord Shiva, they are given this job profile, service profile, to train and transform the living entities from this illusion of independence to the reality of dependence. So if anyone asks you that what is material world, it's a place to help the soul experience the illusion of independence. And if anyone asks you what's the job profile of Lord Shiva and Parvati and what's the job profile of material energy, that service profile is simple: to help the soul, to train the soul from a level of illusion of independence to the reality of dependence. Now, it's not that easy, because it's like the soul has, for ages, lifetimes together, the soul has been in illusion. And to take the soul from illusion to reality, it's not a direct process. It's not a direct process. It's not that I will tell all of you just now that just depend on Krishna. Give up everything. I think the next week there will be no one in the Srimad Bhagavatam class. If we put a criteria to come and join the Srimad Bhagavatam class, that telling that you don't need anything in life, you don't need a house, you don't need a husband, you don't need a wife, you don't need a car, you do not need, and whatever food you need, actually you can easily depend on Krishna, and Krishna will provide that food. Krishna has provided air? Yes, you will say, Krishna has provided air. Did you purchase the air? No, I didn't purchase the air. So Krishna will provide the food. You don't have to purchase the food. You do not have to work hard for the food. It will come. How many of you will join with this criteria, the Srimad Bhagavatam classes? Sweta Mataji is raising hand. I think Rajesh Prabhu is really fortunate. But Sweta Mataji is raising the hand, but she is using a smartphone to attend the class, which requires money to purchase. Hare Krishna. So we see, if we are a Mahabhagavat, we don't even require a smartphone for our Krishna consciousness. We can just sit and meditate and close our eyes, and we'll hear the entire class what Sri Nitai Das is giving without using a smartphone. Hare Krishna. Now, how many of you are in that position? You can just sit and meditate, or whatever, just like Sanjay. He just meditated, and whatever Krishna was speaking, he could hear. He didn't have a smartphone, he didn't have a wireless communication, he didn't have Tata Play Fiber. He was just connecting with the vibrations. So in this way, we can see that to go from the level of independence to the level of dependence, it's not a direct process. And that is why the material energy to help the living entity creates another step, which is the level of interdependence, which we will discuss today. So from independence we have to go to dependence. But in between, there is a level which the material energy creates for the living entity, to help the living entity, is the level of interdependence. So there are varieties of levels of interdependence, but we will focus on a specific aspect of interdependence which is required for the 6th canto, the remaining sections. The interdependence between the masculine nature and the feminine nature, between a male and a female. I would not say the male and female, because nowadays, I was talking with one devotee, it's like very difficult to understand who is a male, who is a female, and many times the genders keep on changing for people. So may not be so often so common in India, but in other countries it's like in a communication seminar we are asked that we should never ask the gender of a person, because we really don't know what has gone through in his life or her life, or now his or her, what prepositions we can use for pronouns, what we can use for him or her, whatever it is. So we are not talking about the physical aspect of a male or female. We are going to talk about more deeper the intellectual and the emotional aspect of the feminine and the masculine nature. And understand, a person can be physically male but can be internally feminine, and a person can be physically female and internally masculine. So we are going to discuss about more deeper aspect of this feminine and masculine nature, which is eternal, which cannot be changed, which is there even in the spiritual world. And modern society discusses these gender diversity and all these things based on a completely external and superficial level. It's a very, very external way of seeing things, which has a lot of frailties and flaws and everything. Now, coming to the eternal nature of the feminine and masculine nature. The masculine nature, actually there are two faculties, even in spiritual world, the intelligence and the mind. The mind and intelligence. It's not that in material world you have a mind and intelligence, and you go to spiritual world, then you don't have a mind and intelligence. In spiritual world also, there is the mind and intelligence. And the feminine nature is one that whose emotions, which is source of the mind, supersedes ration, which is coming from intelligence. A feminine nature is one where emotions find a more higher importance than ration. And it's required. Like for example, if you get sick, I have experienced this. Now, if I get sick and I ask my father, I am sick, my father will say, oh God, what is the sickness? And he will analyze the sickness. Oh, that's fine. So you can take this medicine or you go to this doctor. And I asked my mother, oh, you are sick. Oh, what do you need for the sickness? Do you need something? Oh, do you have the food? And what are the diet required? And she would speak everything else other than the medicine. And medicine will be the last part. Oh, are you feeling comfortable? Oh, I'm feeling, I am so far from you. I'm not able to, I want to massage your head. I want to massage your feet. I want to massage. I need medicine first, then the massage. Now, medicine is a reality for the treatment, but massage is also a reality for the treatment. So, medicine is coming from the rationality of a masculine nature, but massage is coming from the emotionality of a feminine nature. And that is why, for the upbringing of a child, both a father and mother is required. The modern society does not understand or disregard this important principle, that both a father and mother are required, and a father has a specific duty in the family and a mother has a specific duty in the family. Most of the relationship problems, family problems, are because of the male not understanding its responsibility and the female doesn't understand the responsibility. And sometimes they don't do that. And who suffers is not the male and female, they definitely suffer. But who suffers is the next generation. We find so much of emotional problems in the current generation. The major reason for it is not them. The major reason for it is their parents. So this masculine nature is more of a rationality, and the feminine nature is more of an emotionality. And you cannot say that only masculine nature is required. You cannot say that only medicine is required. And you cannot say only massage is required when your health problems are there. Yes? So you require a person who really loves you, cares you, and speaks what do you need, what do you think, apart from taking you to a doctor and being very rational. And sometimes the disease can be more emotional than physical, in the sense that a person may need more comfort than medicine. So, and that's how I saw when I was to be very, very frank, you see, I have a lot of graphical experiences in life. Krishna puts me in very, very graphical situations. Many months before, in last year, in October, I had done endoscopy and colonoscopy. Endoscopy is quite good because the pipes have to be put to my mouth, but colonoscopy was really, really little bit. And what can be done? I went and they made me to remove all whatever I am wearing, the sadhu dress. They made me wear some gown, and here comes a lady to do my colonoscopy. And I remembered the verse of Bhagavad-Gita that I am not this body, I am spirit soul. And just like Sarvadharman Parityajya, Nars Ekam Saranam Praja. I didn't had any other option to do anything other than that. But amidst all those emotions that were going on in my mind when I was just lying and thinking that actually she is not a lady and I am not a male, she is just a spirit soul, I am a spirit soul. Let's come out of this things. These are all externals. And I started speaking with that lady. And I would say, after the lady did whatever she did, that I will explain a little elaborately so that you understand what is a feminine nature and a masculine nature. The doctor came, who is a male. And the doctor was quite rational in his, and the way he treated me was like an object. But the nurse was so careful. As soon as he would put a tube, because you have to put certain things, there are some things that are done before the colonoscopy, before the doctor arrives, and that the nurse did. And she was so careful. Before touching, she will ask, does it pain? I said, no. So then he will put, is it fine? No. And she was so sensitive that I don't experience any pain. And then I was starting to speak to her that, before you, one male person came, and what is your experience and what is his experience in doing the procedures before colonoscopy? And this lady said, I am just 3 years having experience in nursing, but this man has almost 10 to 12 years of nursing, specifically on the field of colonoscopy. And I was feeling so difficult the way this man was dealing with me. And this lady was dealing so nicely, and I was telling her that you really did it so nicely. I really appreciate, though you are having only 3 years of experience, but you. And then I started speaking, where did you learn this nursing? Where did you learn to do all these things? And don't you feel a little embarrassed doing this? Especially I'm a male. And then she said, no, this is my service, and all those things he was telling and all the details he was explaining, where she learned it. But I felt that in certain situations, emotionality has a very important aspect than rationality. Especially when it comes to nursing, when it comes to providing certain services, if we become too rational, we cannot do the service effectively. So the feminine nature has a very important requirement. And the masculine nature is also having a requirement, because if everything runs through emotionality, then we'll just take care of a person, but we'll forget to give him the medicine. So in that way, just an example that this masculine nature and feminine nature are designed. The feminine nature has emotions more than ration, and the masculine nature has ration more than emotions. So here comes the principle of interdependence. Because if you do not have something, you require the other person to fill the gap. Yes? So the feminine aspect has to accept the fact. It's a design from the material energy, it's eternal. The feminine aspect has to accept the fact that I lack ration. And that's why I am dependent on a person whose ration is more than emotions. And anyone, whether it's a lady or a male or whatever it is, I'm just talking about the innate nature. And similarly, a man or a masculine nature has to accept the reality. It's designed by material energy to force you to become dependent. He has to accept that reality, that I have ration more than emotions, and in order to fill the gap, I need someone whose emotion is more than ration. And that's how the material energy forces the man and woman to become interdependent. Now one may say that nowadays there is the culture of men and men getting married, women and women getting married, and all those things. But if you study and analyze whether it is a man and man, if you study, one of the man has to possess a feminine nature and one of the other man has to possess the masculine nature, and that's how it is going on. It's exactly not a man and man. And because in Kali Yuga things have become so topsy-turvy, in previous ages the nature and the physicality used to match. If a person is man, he will mostly have masculine feature, and if a person is a lady, she will mostly have the feminine nature. But because of the Kali Yuga and how the Varna Sankaras are, in Bhagavad-Gita, Arjuna speaks about Varna Sankaras. How? Because there is unwanted progeny. What is meaning of Varna Sankara is that there is a mismatch. You have a body of a man, but you have a nature of a woman. You have a body of a lady, but you have a nature of a man, and that creates a lot of difficulty on a mental level, traumatic traumas. So even if nowadays there's a culture and the custom of women and women or men and men getting the ties, it may not be only for sexual reasons. Let's not always tell everything that, oh, it's just a sexual attraction. Like there is so much of talk about men and men, so much of talk about women and women. It's not just about a physical attraction. It's much deeper. There is a feminine aspect in one of the person, and there is a masculine aspect in one of the person, and that has made that bond. Though physically they may have the same gender. So that's why to study these, whatever is going on in material world, especially in Kali Yuga today, modern society, we have to understand it in a very deeper and fundamental level of masculine and feminine nature than on the physical levels, which are very, very illusory, especially because of unwanted progeny in Kali Yuga. So now this interdependence is created by Durga Devi, and it can never be taken out. It can never be taken out. And because the man has less emotions and more ration, or so a masculine nature, he is prone to get affected by a lady who can exploit that aspect. Similarly, a lady has ration less and emotion more. So she becomes prone to getting exploited by another man who has ration more and less emotion. And that is how a man always needs the protection of a chaste lady, and a lady always needs the protection of a character-oriented man. And that's why the beginning of education in previous times, there was no co-ed, because that doesn't work. The men were trained in character to not exploit the woman, because they have a tendency to exploit the woman, and women were trained in chastity so that they don't exploit the men. And that's how character and chastity actually prevented adultery in the society and ensured that the society is very, very protected. And we see in these two pastimes of Srimad Bhagavatam, the pastime of Ajamila, where Ajamil gets affected by a characterless lady. He is a married man. He gets affected by a characterless lady, a prostitute, and he had his wife. He didn't even reveal his mind to his wife, who could have helped him. He didn't go, he actually saw some scenes and everything and he got affected. He didn't go back to his house and revealed his heart. You know, this happened. I got very, very disturbed mentally because of this lady. And he didn't do that. And he actually threw away his own chaste wife from the home and brought that prostitute. And the prostitute had several children born from several other men we really don't know from whom. And he started killing people, looting people, thievery and all those things to maintain the sons of the prostitute. To that extent, Ajamila was polluted and sinful. And similarly, the pastime of Diti understood that where is the weak point of my husband. You know, it's not her husband Kashyapa. Every husband has that weak point. And Diti exploited the weak point of Kashyapa, that a man has more ration and less emotion, and Diti started serving Kashyapa so nicely, massaging and doing everything so nicely. And finally, Kashyapa was so pleased, asked Diti, you tell me, what do you want? You're serving so nicely. I am now forced to give you some benediction. And Diti said, I want a son who can kill Indra. Just imagine. And then Kashyapa says, hi, I got affected. And we will describe elaborately how, what happens in the story when we discuss it. But here is the pastime where a lady exploits the weak point of a man. And Ajamila sections portrays a story where a man gets exploited or exploits his wife, being actually affected because of his weak point. So the nature has forced us to remain interdependent. It's not that the lady needs protection. The man needs equal protection like the lady. The man needs the protection from the mind, of the mind. The lady actually protects the mind of the husband, and the husband protects the body of the lady. And we see so much instances of so much of chaos happening in the society, mainly because men are not trained in character and ladies are not trained in chastity. And that was the major training in the brahmachari or brahmacharini ashram before men and women were formally getting married in previous societies. And since the training is of a different nature, apart from the physics and chemistry and mathematics which were taught, and the Sanskrit, and like Kunti Maharani, if you see, she is speaking such Sanskrit slokas, that means she is taught from childhood. So it's not that the ladies used to not go to Gurukuls, they used to go, but because the procedures of the training, the principle that has to be indoctrinated to a girl was little different than the principle that has to be indoctrinated in a boy. That's why they were trained differently. So this system is created by the material energy to feel that interdependence and to protect the man from exploiting the woman and protect the woman from exploiting the man. Because there is a tendency in the living entity to exploit. And that's how the living entity has come from the spiritual world to material world, to exploit. And the living entity is forced to put in an interdependent situation, so he knows that if I exploit, then I will get definitely exploited because I am also in a vulnerable situation. Both the man and the woman, both are vulnerable of getting exploited. And when a man and woman both understand that I am vulnerable, they would really take that relationship very seriously and become more responsible in that relationship. And that creates humility. And humility is the beginning of spirituality. That's the technique of the material energy. Material energy's main technique is to make us humble, because Durga Devi knows if we are not humble, we will never be able to understand spirituality. The first aspect of understanding spirituality is humility, because most of the spiritual techniques can never be experimented. It has to be experienced, and we need to have that humility to accept the scriptures. We need to have the humility to accept the words of the sadhu. And when a living entity understands this humility and understands the principles of interdependence in life, then he understands that there is much beyond this body and starts searching for the real reality, that is the soul. So this is the technique that the material energy uses to make ultimately the soul dependent on God. In spiritual world, all the living entities except Krishna are all feminine by nature. Ekale Ishvara Krishna Ara Sababhritya. Krishna is the only male in spiritual world, and all, whether it is Radharani, whether it is Subal Sakha, whether it is Amsu or Sridama, whether they have a male body or a female body, everyone is a Prakriti or a feminine nature, and only Krishna is the masculine nature. And to train us this principle of interdependence, material energy simulates this in this world. But ultimately we need to get trained to become dependent on Krishna, because we by nature are feminine and Krishna is the only master. Ekale Ishvara Krishna Ara Sabavritya. So now there is another section in the 6th canto where Daksha is cursing Narad Muni. The reason Daksha was cursing Narad Muni is that Daksha got a service from the Supreme Lord to increase the progeny. He is a Prajapati, rather he is the head of the Prajapati, to increase the progeny in this material world. So first he created 10,000 sons and he sent them to forest to perform austerities, and he was expecting them to come back and get married and increase and help him do his service. And you know, in the forest, Narad Muni met these 10,000 sons. And Narad Muni said, you know, what you're doing? They said, we are doing austerity. Narad Muni said, good, life is meant for austerity. What is the goal of your austerity? Now we are going to go back and get married and have children. So, that's a very, very, preliminary understanding. I will explain you the goal of austerity. And Narad Muni explains them and all those things, and they get convinced, and they said that we would like to become like you. Narad Muni said, join me. And then Narad Muni makes them brahmacharis. Hare Krishna. And Daksha is waiting here 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 year, so many years, and Daksha is not able to understand. He sends some spies and understands that they are gone. They have become brahmacharis. And he becomes upset. But he's Daksha, he's expert. He creates more 1,000 children. And again sends them to forest. And again they go forest and they do austerity, and again Narad Muni comes. And Narad Muni comes again and says, what are you doing? I said, we are doing austerities. What is the goal of your austerity? We are going to get married and create children, so that's why we need to become austere in the beginning. Said, do you know that you have brothers also, 10,000 in number? No, we don't know. Where are they? They're all elder brothers. And do you also know that it's the duty of the younger brother to follow the elder brother? Now, yes, we know that. Now, all your 10,000 elder brothers have gone to the north and become brahmacharis. So what is your plan? Now, we must become brahmacharis. And they left. And like that, 11,000 sons of Daksha all became brahmacharis. Narad Muni didn't even spare one. So it was really, really disgusting and frustrating for Daksha, and then Daksha and Narad Muni meet. And Daksha is so disgusted. Daksha says, you don't know the principle. The principle is, first they have to learn interdependence in the Grihastha ashram, then they can learn absolute dependence to Krishna. Do you know it? Narad Muni said, I know it. And then why did you do it? I curse you. Because you stayed for a long time with my sons, that's why they got impressed by you. So I curse you that you cannot stay anywhere more than 3 days. And that's why sannyasis can't stay in a place like I am saying in Calcutta. I have been staying for long. That's why my health problems are starting. Maybe because of the curse of Daksha. I have to travel a lot. But this third pastime in the 6th canto explains a dramatically opposite principle where the interdependence principle is not explained and absolute dependence on God is explained. And we have to understand this philosophy of becoming a sannyasi needs a feeling of dependence on God. Until and unless a person has that nature to feel that dependence on God, he should never be inspired to become a brahmachari or a sannyasi, because a sannyasi is one whose source of ration and emotion is only Krishna. Like for example, one devotee, I was telling the other day, one devotee came and he's my superior, and he was again and again telling that, you are sick, and there is something called medical astrology, and there is where you can find your doctor, which state he is belonging to. I said, wow, I said, why don't you take that and you can find out your doctor where it is? I said, it is not proper. I would definitely not do that, because as a sannyasi, the principle is to only consider Srimad Bhagavatam as the reality of life. And any sannyasi or a brahmachari who really wants to remain in this renounce order, he cannot take shelter of any principle other than the absolute principle of absolute surrender to Krishna. That's not allowed. He will never be able to remain in the renounce order if he takes shelter of any other principle. Definitely, a sannyasi can take medicines, a sannyasi can do many things, but a sannyasi should understand if he wants to stay in this order, he has to follow abhayam sattva samsiddhi, the principle of fearlessness, Bhagavad-Gita says. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in commentary to this verse in Bhagavad-Gita, abhayam sattva samsiddhi, speaks about the mood of the renounce order. The mood of the renounce order is my source of intellect, my source of information, my source of ration is scriptures. I don't need to do any experiment to believe it. It's innate. If the scriptures say that spiritual world exists, a person who is of renounce order, there is no doubt. I don't need to experiment. It's like scripture says, that's it. His source of ration is only scriptures. And his source of emotion is only scriptures. Janaka, Janani, Daita, Tanaya, mother, father, wife, husband, everyone is Krishna. And until and unless one is in this platform, one should not be inspired artificially to take up to the renounce order of life. It will not happen. It will not remain. It will always become a hazard, catastrophe in the life of a person. And Narad Muni could understand that these sons, 10,000 and 1,000, have that nature. But Daksha could not understand, and he thought that Narad Muni is just going on around and making brahmacharis. It's not the job of Narad Muni. Narad Muni didn't make Dhruva brahmachari. Dhruva was not married that time. Narad Muni didn't make Prahlad a brahmachari. Prahlad was not married that time. He was in the womb. So it's not that Narad Muni is going on and becoming he has a brahmachari making program all throughout the universe. It is Daksha who misunderstood Narad Muni. Narad Muni saw that these 11,000 sons of Daksha, they are already very elevated. That they don't need these principles of interdependence. They are very, very elevated, that they can feel. That's why Narad Muni, when we study those sections, Narad Muni does not explain the principle of interdependence, the principle of Grihastha Ashram. He explains a riddle in our trying to understand whether they understood the riddle. And they understood the riddle. They understood the puzzle. And from that, Narad Muni could understand that these people, they are of much elevated consciousness and they don't require this platform of interdependence. They have already come to a Paramahamsa level, which Daksha could not understand. So, ultimate goal is not the brahmachari ashram, not the grihastha ashram, not being a male or a female. The ultimate goal is for the soul to realize its absolute dependence on the Supreme Lord. But to do that, there are different platforms based on the level of the living entity. There is the platform of the renounce order and the platform of the order of interdependence through the Grihastha ashram. And both have the same purpose, designed for the same purpose, to ultimately take the living entity back to spiritual world, back to Godhead. where the living entity can experience and live in the reality of absolute dependence to Krishna. So these three sections have to be clapped together in this way. And we will explain elaborately these three sections, where we will explain how a man needs protection and what are the things a man should do. Like we'll describe elaborately what was the problem of Ajamila, why Ajamila had to seriously suffer like this. And similarly, we will also describe the faults in Diti and faults in Kashyapa, dealing with Diti in the last section. And we will also describe the renounce order and the elaborately the what are the pitfalls that one can face, and how even in the principal order of Grihastha Ashram, how we can live, or how we can aspire to live on a level of dependence to Krishna. So that is the third section. That will be the last section that we will be discussing in this entire three section. So progressively. Though the second section, Narad Muni getting cursed from Daksha, is in the beginning, but we will describe it in this way. The first one, Ajamil, and then Diti, Upakhyan, and then Narad Daksha Sambad. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. So this is just an overview of the remaining sections of the 6th canto. I know there will be a lot of questions because I have taken up a very controversial subject matter. Yes, Udit Prabhu. Sorry, Selja Mataji raised hand first and then Udit Prabhu. We'll follow gender diversity. First a lady and then a man. Yes. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Dandavat.
When we discussing about male and female, so you said that that interdependence, like male and female are depending like rational and emotionally. But where we see in our practical life, we see that the fight and the most जो भी झगड़ा झमेला होता है because women को लगता है कि इमोशनल सपोर्ट नहीं मिल रहा है हस्बैंड से, और हस्बैंड को लगता है वो खाली इमोशनल, वेरी इमोशनल, शी इज नॉट रैशनल. So how it is like, अगर इंटरडिपेंडेंस ऑपोजिट है तो फिर हम क्यों एक्सपेक्ट करते हैं कि सेम इमोशंस होना चाहिए, सेम रैशनल?
That's why I'm writing a book on marriage, to help the man understand the psychology of a woman and to help the woman understand the psychology of a man. So I think you have to wait.
My question is like, अगर हमारा like there is female and male attraction, that is opposite, तो हमारा फिर वो इमोशनल और रैशनल ऑपोजिट क्यों नहीं हो सकता? फिर इसीलिए तो क्लैशेस होते हैं, बस हमें लगता है वो सपोर्ट जो हमारा थॉट है वैसा नहीं है.
Classes are because of the modern education system. Classes are because of lack of education. All the husband-wife classes that we see is because of lack of education. Definitely, Kali Yuga, the husband is not purely masculine and the wife is not purely feminine. That aspect is there, but still, at least if the relationship is going on, means it is almost more than 50% the man is man and the more than 50% the woman is woman. But the main problem of all the relationship classes, especially between boy and girl in Kali Yuga, is because of lack of education. Modern education focuses more on livelihood, and it does not focus on your identity as a body, as a life. Vedic education system, a primary aspect of it was also to train a man on man's psychology and also woman's psychology. Psychology is a subject which is not taught anywhere. Environmental science is taught. Even the IITians should also learn environmental science. But psychology is not taught. Psychology is taught in a very, very gross way. All glories to the father of psychology, Sigmund Freud and all those things. But it's a very, very physical aspect of psychology is not a fundamental aspect, but psychology was a subject which was taught to everyone, whether it is whether it is Arjuna who learnt archery, whether it is Bhima who learnt Gada, and whether it is Yudhishthir who learnt javelin. You know, Yudhishthir was expert in throwing javelins. So they and Sahadev and Nakul who learned strategies, military strategies, everyone learned psychology. The man was taught about the psychology of a man and psychology of a lady, and lady was taught the psychology of a lady and psychology of a man, so that they are very clear of the mentalities and the very clear. They don't enter the Grihastha ashram with illusion. They enter with reality. So when you are in reality, you will not get frustrated, and when you are not getting frustrated, there will be no classes. Most of the classes are because none of them are in reality. Whether it is husband and wife or a boyfriend and girlfriend, they are all in illusion, and the illusion is because of lack of education, right? So now, to educate you elaborately about where is the problem, it requires like full maybe 2-3 classes on psychology of man and woman. I thought, it's better to put them in book and writing so that all of you can read, and you have to maybe wait for 6 months so that this book comes out and you bless me. But it's more of a lack of education. If a lady is not able to handle the husband, that means the lady is not trained in the psychology of a man. And a man is not able to handle his wife, that means he's not trained in the psychology of a lady. That's the major problem. And if the lady is asking question, means she is not educated. No lady will ask question that how to handle my husband. The training is done so nicely that she can train other ladies of how to handle. You see, Diti was so expert that mishandled Kashyapa. The education also requires a character. So Diti was so educated in psychology of man, kaise patana hai, that she actually mishandled Kashyapa because he lacked the character. So every knowledge also has a problem that you can exploit the knowledge, correct? So if a lady comes to know the vulnerability of a man, so the lady can either protect the man or the lady can exploit the man. So that's why another aspect that was taught in Gurukul was character. Don't exploit anyone, because if you exploit anyone, the way you can get exploited by material energy. So they were taught the principles of karma, and character is basically to know the law of karma, the fear of not committing, giving any pain to others. So like that. So it's basically lack of education, and it will take some time, but you wait, it will come out, then you can read. Already I'm doing elaborate research on this field, so I will definitely, but you have to read it, and you have to inspire others to read it. Hare Krishna. Yes, Udit Prabhu and then Nidhi Mataji, Kushal Bihari Prabhu and Ajay Prabhu. It's lined up. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you so much for a very philosophically heavy
Yes.
session. A lot of time to Prabhuji realize your words of wisdom, but yeah, they're really true when we think about them. Prabhuji, my question is that you spoke about platform of renounced order and then platform of interdependence.
Yes.
And then you also spoke about that our actual nature is we are feminine in nature, where the Krishna is only the masculine. But when we are interdependence, we are exhibiting this nature of masculine and femininity. And the renounced person is mostly closer to Krishna than what as a Grahastha we are. So, Prabhuji, is it how much it's difficult or easy for a person to move from platform of interdependence to platform of dependence in this current lifetime?
Correct. So one may think that a renounce order is a easier platform because the renounce order forces you on a physical level, on a direct level, to experience absolute dependence on God. Right? It's a forceful thing. And interdependence, one may think that one is a little far from Krishna because you are following an intermediate step. But if one is not in that platform, one cannot digest that, then it becomes a catastrophe. And then what happens? Like, for example, someone who is in the who is at a level much higher than the level of interdependence, if he is forced to follow the principles of interdependence, he will become irresponsible in his married life. No matter how much ever you teach him responsibility, he would be like Tukaram Maharaj. He'll be like, you know how Tukaram Maharaj was irresponsible? You know, he was not irresponsible. He was equally responsible for everyone. You know, our Kushal Bihari Prabhu has a nice book on Tukaram Maharaj. He brought someone gave him lot of sugarcane. And Tukaram Maharaj was holding the sugarcane and taking those sugarcanes for his family. And on the way, there were people who were coming and asking him sugarcane. And he gave away all the sugarcane on the way. And when he reached his family, his son and daughter came running, Papa, kya leke aayo kya? Said nothing. So now a renounce order is a person who sees no difference between his family and my family. Like for example, my father called and said ki, you call so many people, you have time for so many people and you're not calling me. I said, I don't call anyone, they call me, so I call them back. And you as a family, you are equal as they as the family. I don't see any difference between your family and any family who is taking spiritual guidance from me. And I maintain the same protocol as I maintain with you. When I see any missed call from anyone, I call back, and whenever I have seen any missed call from you, I have called back. And just like I'm not responsible financially or physically, and I'm only responsible spiritually for other families, I'm similarly responsible spiritually for you. And that is why at every point of time, whenever you have called me, I have always tried to give you spiritual insight of life. And I cannot as a sannyasi see you as a unique family, different than other family. That's renounce order. And if one is not able to practice that, if one is able to see the difference, then he is supposed to follow the principles of interdependence. Otherwise, so it's exactly not that he is irresponsible. It is that he is equally responsible. Like my father has said that you are irresponsible. I said I'm not irresponsible. I'm equally responsible. You have missed the point. A sannyasi is not irresponsible. If a sannyasi finds someone's son who is someone else's son admitted to hospital, he is equally praying for him. And if he finds his own sister's son admitted in the hospital, he prays for him. But the sister expects that my brother who has become a sannyasi should do extra, which is not allowed. Right? So he's not irresponsible, he's equally responsible. He sees everyone in the same platform, Vasudha Eka Kutumbakam. Now for a person who is not at that platform, he should not be inspired unnecessarily to take this role of a sannyasi, the renounce order. It will be a catastrophe. And for someone who is in the level of interdependence, who is still seeing the difference, oh, he's my father and mother, and I still, so he should follow the principles of interdependence and do it. And the connection with Krishna is not dependent on these principles. It's a spiritual connection, and we are talking here about all material things. We are talking about material comfortability to practice spirituality. These principles which I spoke about, masculine nature, feminine nature, renounced order, these are all material comfortability. Na ham vipro, na chanarapati, na pi vaishyo, na sudro, na ham varne, na chigrahapati, na vanasto yatirva. Neither we are a brahmachari, nor we are a grihastha, nor we are anything. These are all material comfortabilities to practice spirituality. A person who has the mentality of staying in renounce order, who sees everyone as his own family, who makes no distinction, if he is forced to put in a grihastha ashram, he will exploit his family, or the family will get exploited, because he will not be able to give that care and affection because he sees everyone equally. He has to see a distinction between his family and others' family in order to give that exclusive nourishment to his son and her son. So it's not that a grihastha is less closer to Krishna and a brahmachari or a renounced order is more closer to Krishna. These are all material comfortability to become closer to Krishna. It's a platform. Whoever is comfortable with what? A person of the renounced order is more comfortable to see the entire, like from my childhood. Yesterday, while I was returning with Madhur Kohli Prabhu, I was telling that certain things didn't inspire me at any point of time. These principles of organization, management, that, I was telling him that in a management, I was telling him that what brings a little bit of hesitation in me to represent a management in an organization, even like ISKCON, is that in management, in organization, someone gives funds to ISKCON. So we have to see him different than a person who doesn't give fund. Correct? Correct? We have to have that mentality, otherwise the organization will not work. And I was telling him that you are working in sales section of a big company. You have to see differently a person who is giving you business and a client who is not giving you business. You have to see them differently. Otherwise your company will not grow out. So that's how it is. So a person who is of that mentality of renounced order, he would be more comfortable to see everyone as his own family. And a person who is grihastha, he would like to give an exclusive attention to one family. He would think that, अरे one family को अच्छे से take care करें, पूरा family को थोड़ा time देके क्या फायदा? So it's just a material comfortability. It's a material situation. Okay, and it has no connection with spiritual realization. Like Yudhishthir Maharaj is also very much connected with Krishna, and Narad Muni is also very much connected with Krishna. Yudhishthir Maharaj is a Mahajan, Narad Muni is a Mahajan. And Lord Shiva, who is in Grihastha Ashram and living like a renunciate, he is also a Mahajan. So don't imitate Lord Shiva. He is the husband of material energy. But this is the principle. Is this clear? So don't try to mix these principles, like thinking that, oh, this material principle is just a platform to give us opportunity to practice spirituality. It is nothing spiritual. Brahmachari is not a spiritual person. Grihastha is not a spiritual person. Brahmachari can be more material than a grihastha, or a grihastha can be more spiritual than a brahmachari. Right? These are all material comfortabilities. And let's live in a comfortable zone so that we can practice spiritual life peacefully. Yes. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you so
Hare
much.
Krishna. Yes, Sukruti Mataji, I think, has the question. Dandavad.
I have two questions. One is this masculine nature and feminine nature. Is it a part of the subtle body we carry it over the period of lifetime, or it's just it's along with the body itself?
No.
And second question is, you were telling that in the previous times, the chastity and character thing was taught in the schools, in the Gurukula. So now, how can we implement it now? In schools, obviously, this thing is not being taught. So, what we can do now to teach these things to us?
Okay. So the first question is that what is the source of this masculine and feminine nature? So the source of the masculine and feminine nature in material world is the subtle body. It's the mind which stores the masculine nature and feminine nature. It's the mind which thinks that I am a male or I am a female. And that's how sometimes there is a problem that someone has a body of a male, but if the mind, the mentality is like a female, so that creates a problem. It's actually the mind. It's actually the intelligence and the mind. It's actually in the subtle body. So, and how it gets stored in the subtle body? Based on our desires. In this life, if a person is more and more attached to a lady, more and more attached to ladies, he's a man, but he's constantly thinking about lady. So his subtle body gets transformed in this body itself into a lady. And the next life, mostly he will get a birth of a lady. And similarly, ladies so much thinking about a man, getting born. So that's how it is. The subtle bodies, every moment the subtle body is going through transformations based on our desires we perform. Right? So it's in subtle body. That's how it is. And regarding the second question, how we can train, the first thing we need to till the boy or a girl attains puberty, we do not have to explain these things. These things have to be explained after puberty, that is 12 or 13 or whatever time it takes, or maybe teenagers. But the first thing is not character or chastity. The first thing that needs to be taught is the psychology of a lady and the psychology of a boy. So first we need to give the knowledge, and then we can build values. Because if we give the knowledge, then they will understand the value of the values. So before puberty, the child is not identifying so much as a boy or a girl. But only after puberty, the psychological and physical body changes and the child starts identifying as a boy or a girl. And the first thing that has to be given is knowledge. That what is meaning of being a boy? What are the duties of a boy? What are the psychology of a boy? What is the psychology of a lady? Before they start interacting with ladies. Nowadays, they have started interacting only. So first of all, there has to be separation till the time they have got knowledge. So first of all, till the time, it's not that, co-ed education is banned or anything. It's not like that. But the point is, before giving that education, if we allow the teenagers, then there will be chaos in their lives. And that's how we see. There is no problem in boyfriend, girlfriend, mind it. There is no problem in love marriages. Love marriages have always been a part of our scriptures. Krishna did so many love marriages. Krishna made Arjuna to do love marriage, not love marriage, escape marriage. Right? So there is no problem in love marriage. There is no problem between the boy and female, boy and a girl dating and all those things, that happens. But there has to be prior knowledge. Before giving that education, if a boy and a girl is allowed to mingle, both will bring catastrophe in each other's life. So the first thing is about knowledge. And once we give them knowledge, they understand what is a boy. Because the girl has gone through the psychophysical transformation in her body and she has understood what's a girl now. But she has not understood what's a boy. So she has to be taught by a well-wisher ki look, this is the boy. Similarly, the boy has gone through a psychological, physical transformation in becoming a boy, and now he is feeling intense attraction for a girl, but he has no knowledge what's a girl, how to deal with that girl, so that you don't get frustrated, you don't get exploited. So he needs a person to go to explain him what's a girl, Baba. So that when they come together, they don't exploit each other, they understand each other better, and they serve each other. And that's how we see in previous times, marriages were so long lasting. So long lasting. Material world is miserable, I would say, but because of our modern techniques, we have made it much, much more miserable. Much, much more miserable. You know, Grihastha ashram is miserable, but we don't have to make it much more miserable. Definitely staying together for forever, for a big period of time, it's a lot of sacrifice, and that sacrifice sometimes creates pain or misery. But because of lack of education, we have made it more miserable. So boy and girl, they start mingling among each other, making friends among each other, but they don't know. So they start experimenting among each other only. So the boy experiments with the girl to understand what's the girl, because he is feeling attraction. Oh, kya hai ye cheez? And the girl starts experimenting with the boy, and that's how the teenagers get thoroughly exploited through experimentation. So that is why before they are given and taught the knowledge of psychology of boy and psychology of a girl, and how to not exploit, how you should not mutually exploit, they should never be allowed to mingle. And that's the major problem. Major problem is not that, we don't read scriptures properly and then just make a blanket remark, scriptures, there were all arranged marriages and that's why mixing was not allowed. No, mixing was allowed with knowledge, not with ignorance. Because in ignorance, mixing will only create exploitation and frustration. And that's how we see there are so much of frustrated love cases and, and all those things. Why? Because of lack of knowledge. Yes. So when we give that knowledge, then we can give the value, character and chastity. So first we have to give them knowledge. What's a boy? What's a girl? Yes. But definitely all this knowledge and values both to be given, and then they're allowed. Okay, now you can associate and find out whom you want to marry. It's not a problem. That's what there was Swayamvar. It's not that only a boy can find out a girl. A girl was equally given the chance to find out a boy of her choice. Karna actually was quite competent to do whatever was kept by Drupad. But Draupadi rejected. No, I don't want to marry Karna. I want to marry Arjuna. And that's how Karna was so much feeling that anguish, that I am actually more powerful, more skillful than Arjuna, and how could this lady, out of arrogance and adamance, rejected me? So, but even the ladies had the choice. But Draupadi was trained in understanding a man. Arjuna and the Pandavas were trained in understanding the ladies. So, but modern education is teach them physics, teach them chemistry, teach them how to earn money. And they earn money and simply exploit each other. The girl earns money to exploit the boy earns money to exploit the girl. That's what the business is going on. And then they become equally frustrated and commit suicide. That's how it is going on. Yes, Hare Krishna. So it's not that scriptures tell us that everyone should become like Sri Nitai Das. It's not like that. Scriptures are very, very romantic. Very romantic. Very romantic. So scriptures are very romantic. The romance explained in scripture, I don't think any husband and wife can do those honeymoons. It's like very romantic, but with knowledge. Otherwise, that romance will create only nuisance in society. Yes, Hare Krishna, Ajay Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Dhanavad Pranam Prabhuji.
Dhanavad.
Prabhuji, just in Bhagavad class, what we have learned that the Bhagavad-Gita is the mothers of all scriptures. Okay? Whatever the principles in there in Bhagavad-Gita, if we adopt that in our life, we'll be able to understand what is the life, what is the purpose of life, and what is our duty in this universe. So, and it will help us to purify our mind, and which ultimately help us to attain the spiritual world. Okay? Now, as you told that the Bhagavatam, that here the devotees, the Acharya speaks about the God. And if someone only adopt the Bhagavad Gita, its principle in life, if he or she does not adopt the other scriptures, it helps him or her to attain the spiritual life and to develop God's to develop the points so that we can attain the spiritual life.
Okay, so your question is like, is Bhagavad Gita enough? Yes, yeah, correct. So Bhagavad Gita is enough to attain, take us to spiritual world. But what we will do in spiritual world, that training is required. Like for example, the 4 years of BTech course is enough to take you to a company. But even after joining a company, you have a 1 year of internship in TCS. Yes.
No, we need to do some training.
Yes, so that's what. So this Bhagavad Gita is definitely a book which can take us to spiritual world. It teaches us the right principles and what we should do, what we should not do, and all those things. But even Bhagavad Gita places us in spiritual world. We still need to understand what we are going to do in spiritual world, how we are going to function in spiritual world. So that's why even if a person has completed the BTech course and he's completely qualified to join a company, the company also creates a program of 1 year of training, apprenticeship, I don't know what's the word is called, graduate engineering training. So like that, they give 1 year of training. Apprentice.
We call it Initial Learning Program, IMP.
Okay, IMP, Initial Learning Program. So Bhagavatam is Initial Learning Program, ILP, for spiritual world. So it explains that what is spiritual world, how the Brajavasis deal with Krishna, so it's like that. So Bhagavad Gita is enough to take us to spiritual world. If we just take shelter of Bhagavad Gita, we will be in spiritual world. There is no doubt about it. But what we will do there, we require a training, and that's what Srimad Bhagavatam speaks about. The dealings of spiritual world, the how to function in spiritual world. And then after Srimad Bhagavatam, we need to read Caitanya Charitamrita to understand the mind of the Lord. So Caitanya Charitamrita speaks about manobritti of God. And Bhagavatam speaks about the britti of the Lord. Britti means what the Lord does in spiritual world. Bhagavad Gita just speaks that there is a dham. But in dham, how to function, what the Lord does, what I have to do, those knowledge is given in Srimad Bhagavatam. And then if I need to deal with the Lord, I need to understand the mind of the Lord. That is Caitanya Charitamrita. The manobritti of the Lord is explained in spiritual world. So Bhagavad Gita speaks about our britti. Bhagavatam speaks about Lord's britti. Caitanya Charitamrita speaks about Lord's manobritti. Yes. So it's like gradual. But Bhagavad Gita is enough to take you to spiritual world. Hare Krishna, thank you so much. Yes, Nidhi Mataji, last question. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hari Bol, Dandavat.
Prabhuji, you said that in this world, everyone is of a female, this thing, only Krishna is male. But if you talk about rationality and emotional aspect, you see, then actually some men are only emotional. I mean, only rational. I mean, whichever man I have come across in my life, be it friend, father, husband, brother, they are all so rational, and they always feel that I'm thinking only with heart. So, ठीक है, it's null and void.
Yes, so what's the question?
The question is, how can you say that the men are only, men are also like female? I mean, Krishna is the only man.
Oh, so that is, see, so you have to understand there is the level of soul, there is the level of body. So this rationality, emotionality is existing on the level of body. On the level of soul, we are all feminine by nature. But on the level of this subtle body, these differences are there, and we need to understand these differences, because right now we are dealing with a body. So there are two levels. One is we are having this body, and this body is having some masculine nature, some feminine nature. But on the level of soul, we do not have any masculine nature. We are purely feminine. So right now we are on this level, we need to go to the level of soul. And that is why there is this scriptures, read the scriptures, understand Krishna, serve Krishna, so that we ultimately attain this level. Right? And as far as your question about husband is fully rational and no emotional, so it's everyone has a particular percentage. Some men are really definitely fully rational, and the emotional side is practically not there. So understand, then you have a more responsibility to compliment him, because you have been always criticizing or maybe complaining, never complimenting. That is why he is also complaining. So if you stop complaining and complimenting, then he will also stop complaining. So you should think that it's the best combination. I am fully rational and I am fully emotional and fully rational. So you can compliment me fully and I can compliment you fully, instead of you complaining about me and I complaining about you. But he is seeing your rational bankruptcy and you are seeing his emotional bankruptcy and you are complaining. And that's how there are fights. So instead that you see his rational fulfillment and try to complement his emotional bankruptcy, and he sees your rational rational bankruptcy and fulfills that, then it will never be any problem. Okay. Another question. I think we declared it last question, and Arijit Prabhu's question is in the WhatsApp group. It will come and all of you will hear the question and hear the answer. Yes, Arijit Prabhu, and also Nidhi Mataji's question will also come in the WhatsApp group, because today is Ekadasi and I have chanted only 2 rounds of Hare Krishna till now, and I have another class at 11:30. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. I hope you all understood. It was really philosophical little bit today's class. And if you have not grasped it, maybe you have to again hear it or maybe discuss with in the groups what we discussed. There are reading groups, and this week's reading groups, you all can churn out more on this subject matter, so that to understand whether other understood or not. Some people might have understood some things, some people might not have understood, but it's a very, very important aspect to understand, because ultimately in this world we are dealing with male and female, and we need to understand it so that We don't exploit each other. Currently, there is so much of gender polarization. There is so much of problems in both these genders trying to compete and create problems for each other without really understanding that this is designed for interdependence, designed for complementing, not designed for competing. So this gender polarization or the feminist movement or the International Men's Day celebration, these are all completely wrong. These are all so much of polarizing the society. So it's very dangerous. We should understand that the male and female, they're meant to do mutual service to each other and complement, not compete. Okay, Hare Krishna, thank you so much. Jai Shri. I know I have taken a controversial topic today, so all of you discuss nicely and send me the question, Nidhi Mataji and Arijit Prabhu. In the group you can put, we will discuss. Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpataru Veshukripa Sindhu Vyayavacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo. Jai Shri Prabhupada ki Jai.